Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond. Joining alongside me is Seth Varnadore. Seth, we're doing a little two-man weave, a little pick and roll action, a little high-low, a little Tyler Harris, Russ Chua action here this evening with Stieg out. We got a jam-packed show for you all tonight. We got basketball can be fun. We've got 2024 football commit. We've had, a half dozen 2026 offers. I think these guys are, math is hard sophomores, rising sophomores, if that's how that works.
Yes. 23 are seniors now. So, yeah.
24 are juniors. They're rising sophomores. So they're technically freshmen still. And we're a week away from the late signing period. Just a whole bunch of stuff going on. Oh, and we know the date of the spring game. And there's Pro Bowls in the conference championships with a chance to win the Super Bowl. There's just a bunch going on, man.
Yeah, who said there was nothing to talk about this week when it came to football?
I don't know. Maybe the person who's not on the show.
Listen, he gets one. We give him one little show. He gets the roundup. With Vito, and then he refuses to come on. He's getting mentioned by the Fowler Avenue Collective. He may be growing too big for us.
Yeah, I'm actually just gonna have someone to replace him, seeing as I replaced him with you, and then I replaced him with Morgan, and we've got to find someone else to replace him. I mean, he's getting too big. We need to find a new Fozzie Bear. So
I got to say, Heath is in the chat. He did an excellent job on the roundup. He could slide right in there, I think, and maybe even take us to another level. He had great energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a former USF cheerleader, you better have energy. You better have it going on. And Heath, in more ways than one, has it going on. That's
A2
sure.
Heath. That's what Stieg might say in the future.
Yeah. So let's do some Pro Bowls in the NFL. So this past weekend, division championship games, lots of stuff going on. MVS for the Kansas City Chiefs caught a touchdown. It looked like I was lagging. I'm not sure if I am or not. So we'll find out.
I think you're good. You went a little robot there for a second.
That's fine. That's fine. If I have to turn it off the camera, I will.
If it turns into a one-man show, it's going to get really, really dry. So,
yeah, we'll try. We'll try. And then on the practice squad for the Kansas City Chiefs is Chris Oladokun, who technically is a South Dakota State grad, but we will forever claim him. And also on the practice squad for the Chiefs is former USF center and Super Bowl winning center, Austin Ryder. He is on the practice squad as well for those Kansas City Chiefs who host the Cincinnati Bengals on Sunday. And lo and behold, there's another former Bull on the Bengals, tight end Mitchell Wilcox, who was underutilized at USF, to put it politely. And then has honestly worked his way up from practice squad guy to special teams guy. And now it seems like he's firmly tight end number 2 behind Hayden Hurst. I think that's the guy's name, right?
Yeah, Hayden Hurst. He had a catch last week. He's in there. The fact that he survived the long snap fiasco, whatever that was, shows that he's probably provided some value, right? So,
yes,
that was didn't know if he was going to make it through that one, but he's still here.
Yeah, that was something else, man. To the adversity that he's had in his football career, to still keep going and providing value for seemingly, I mean, one of the 4 best teams in the NFL is remarkable. I do remember last season when CJ Uzuma, the guy who went to the Jets, I can't remember how to pronounce his last name.
Uzama, maybe.
Yeah, Uzama. He went out with an injury, and on one of their last drives against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, he was one of the lead blockers on that final drive that helped the Bengals, either ice it or win it. I remember he was heavily involved, and it seems like his role has expanded up there in Cincinnati. So good luck to those 4 gentlemen as they attempt to win a Super Bowl. Ryder is the only one with a Super Bowl ring, so the other 3 potentially have a shot at their first. Mitch has been in the Super Bowl, and so I mean that's
pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. It is really, really awesome. Ryder's been in 2. He's going for his 3rd. Unfortunately, the Bucks beat that ass in the 2021 Super Bowl, so he could not get one there. But all 4 dudes are fantastic people, fantastic ambassadors to USF. I talk to Chris occasionally, just kind of checking in on him, and he loved his time at USF. Just unfortunate it didn't work out. And the funny thing is, also the other quarterback on the practice squad for the Chiefs is Shane Buechele, who, if you guys know any, Shane Buechele is Sterling loved him at Texas. There's that. For some reason, my stream just popped up, so I don't know what happened.
You're good now. I don't know. You were talking about. I think you're saying Sterling loved Shane Buechele at Texas, so maybe they can swap stories.
Absolutely loved him. Yes, absolutely loved him. What was so, as an aside, like the Steam app just opened up and just started updating by itself. So I don't know. I don't know what happened, but
sounds
hopefully
great.
It's okay. Okay, good. Perfect. Yeah, and then I mean, Mitch has always been probably one of the best guys to promote USF at the NFL level, outside of maybe MVS, who actually has a literal USF tattoo on him. So there it is. Moving on. I mean,
guaranteed.
I know
in
the
Super
chat.
Bowl
I know there's a guaranteed, man, for almost every single year, right? It's been, I think there's only been one season where there hasn't been someone. Last year was Mitch, and the year before that was JPP and Austin Ryder. I think 2020 is, I can't even remember. No, Austin Ryder that year too. Maybe 2019. It's been almost, it's like 10 of 11 years there's been at least one Super Bowl, at least a USF grad in the Super Bowl, which is pretty remarkable given the state of USF for a large chunk of that time. Like Austin Ryder didn't see a winning season until he got to the NFL. And I think if you asked anybody who covered USF during that time period, you'd thought there's no way in hell Austin Ryder's making it in the NFL as a center. Turns out he was a Super Bowl winning starting center. So look what we know.
Well, there you go.
There you go. Let's get crack-a-lacking on some other stuff. Pretty big recruiting weekend coming up for the Bulls for this 2023 starting of kicking off the 2024 class. There's first of all, it's Gasparilla, and they're having a come to the Bay Day on Saturday, which, I mean, as Steve pointed out on Twitter this week, like, impeccable timing. What better way to showcase your city than on Gasparilla? Maybe just avoid South Tampa, but other than that.
Yeah, really, I'd say it's really interesting how they've chosen to kind of break up. So a lot of teams are doing junior days over multiple weekends. They've seemingly broken it up into 2 kind of sections, where this past weekend they had a few official visitors, and we'll talk about those guys in a second.
Mm-hmm.
Those names were in our Discord before they were anywhere else, I believe. So if you want to know who's visiting, get in our Discord. And if you're watching us on Twitch, subscribe, send it to the house account, and we'll get you in there so you can get that inside info. But in addition to those at least three official visitors that we know of, they had a bunch of 2024 kids in there, and it seems like they had it to where they had a lot of local kids this past week. And you've seen, if you've been following Goalish or any of the social media accounts, you've seen 2 different hashtags they seem to be using a lot. One is Stay in the Bay. And so this past weekend was Bay Day. And so I think they had a lot of local kids there, a lot of 2024s. And then, as you said, this weekend is it comes. I think the hashtag is "Come to the Bay," and so they're going to have a lot of guys that are more non-local guys, so guys from outside of the area come in for their junior day. I thought it was really interesting how they're breaking that up, especially with how we know one complaint often from local coaches that they don't get enough emphasis put on the local schools. Well, they basically got their whole weekend to themselves, it seems like. So I thought that was a pretty good tool and a pretty good way to break it down. It shows some thinking and some thought being put into how this recruiting thing's done. And you mentioned earlier, they're already throwing out offers of 2026, 2025, and they're having 2024s on campus. So one thing you always worry about when a new staff comes in is, are they going to focus all on this first class and try to get these guys in, and will that make them fall behind in future classes? Well, this group's done a really good job of kind of understanding what they need in this class, getting it, and then moving on to future classes so they don't fall behind there. So far, you'd have to feel pretty good about the recruiting structure, at least under the new staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we kind of touch on some of the offers that have been going out, USF got a commitment. Monday, Sunday or Monday.
I think it was Monday.
Monday from Hillsborough High School, running back Jaquez Gibson. He's a 2024 guy, local kid. His film was pretty good. I mean, from I'll let Seth talk about his film, but it seemed like he kind of jumped out of the screen and was pretty shifty and quick, given what he's a junior at this point.
Yes, he's 2024 kid. Played, I think he had about almost 1,000 yards this year at Hillsborough, but he didn't have a ton of carries, so he was pretty productive. Played a little receiver too. He had some highlights where he's playing slot, so they get the ball to him in that way as well. He did a pretty good job there. Looking at track times, not crazy elite speed, but that could be something that, that can kind of improve quite a bit in one off season, especially with the younger guys running track. Sometimes those are just really because you don't know how to run track because you're young and you haven't run it a ton. But on film, there's not a lot of people catching him from behind. Seems to have pretty good vision. Like I said, has some ability to catch the ball as well at a what's been a traditionally really good program. I think that's definitely a good get in that 2024 class to be your second guy in that class. I know they but they have a commitment from I believe it's Marcellus Tate, quarterback from Jacksonville. He's your second one. First one in the Bay Area, so you can kind of get the ball rolling there. And he's a guy they offered this past weekend when he came to their junior day. So obviously they made a really good impression on him. And I'll pull it up here, but even though it's a 2024 commitment, that's a long way out. Commitments are really good, and this is going to kind of sound like a no-duh, but commitments are really good indicators of where people are going to sign, even this far out. And I'm going to pull up a graph real quick. Nate, if you could vamp for a second.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Find this.
And I think it kind of led into the conversation because he did tweet out today that his recruitment's still open. So he retweeted that on Tuesday. There's still not that much variation. I will say I'm a little bit more concerned about Tate jumping ship because he's been offered by Coastal. I think he was up at Coastal. But just because, Travis Trickett, Sawyer Jordan, those guys were recruiting him here. And listen, for all the amount of times that you try to tell a recruit or the outside world tries to tell a recruit, commit to the school, not the coach.
Yeah.
It's not really how that works sometimes. And it's completely understandable. I mean, you make a good, solid relationship with your position coach and offensive coordinator, or potential offensive coordinator and position coach. You kind of want to see that through because that's the relationship you built, and you don't really know what the next guy really wants from a quarterback. And I'll ask you this, Seth, that I'll ask you after you kind of break down what are we looking at? What's the data points? What are we trying to figure out here?
Okay, so this is a graph or a little data here that's been put together by J Bud Davis on Twitter. Really good follow for general recruiting. He does a lot of Florida stuff too, so I've interacted with him on that side of it. But he does a ton of really good stuff on recruiting and how he's got a great graph on getting the final official visit and how often does that turn into a signing. But this is you can see at the top at what rates do commits, official visits, and decommits turn into signings. So you can see for commits, and it actually gets higher as the recruit rank gets lower, right? So when lower ranked kids commit, they usually stick a little bit more than the higher ranked. That makes sense, right? Because there's a lot of competition for those higher ranked guys, and we've seen like with NIL and things like that. This doesn't include the NIL era really, but that makes sense just logically. But you can see here this data from 2019, 2020, and 2022. Basically, if you get a kid to commit, you've got about an 80% chance or more of keeping him. So even though it's very far out, the fact that you got him to commit gives you a great chance to retain. And depending on where he comes out in the cycle in terms of rankings, where if he's like a middle of the pack guy, that percentage goes up, and as you get further back, it goes higher. So you'd have to feel like you've got now that you've got him committed. You may lose him, but the chance you lose him is very low comparatively to keeping him. You got about a 20% chance of losing him and an 80% chance of keeping him based on prior data. Now this isn't a huge sample, but it's a decent enough one just to kind of see some trends. So I think that's interesting. The Tate one will be one to watch. Like you said, he committed to the prior staff, kept his commitment. Does that kind of go? I wonder how that would change here. I don't know if that's factored in. But you can see if you get him to official visit as well, I think you got it pretty much locked up down the line. But those are things that can change as time goes on. But I did think it was interesting just to see. I think a lot of people are worried that, hey, this is a really early commit, especially with my recruitment still open. But I think you're going to see that now as time goes on, is where guys will commit early and kind of see what kind of happens to their options. Especially there's players have a lot more power now with the NIL. If you're going to be a really good player, you've got a lot more power in terms of negotiating, so you can do that. But I still think this will hold pretty true that getting a commit is pretty important. But we'll see if this plays out with Jacquez or not. But
yep. I do want to ask you about with Tate, Seth. As we kind of mentioned, he was recruited by Travis Trickett. He's at a different place. Trickett's trying to recruit him up to Coastal. What as a former quarterback, as a former college coach, how much stock do you put in? Maybe if you're a new staff coming in and you have a quarterback commit, like how much stock do you put in to the previous staff's evaluation of that quarterback, and like how do you kind of go about assessing, okay, maybe we need to talk to him about maybe decommitting, finding somewhere else because you're just not a fit for what we're trying to do? What's the process? Because it seems like other positions may be a little bit more fluid in the fact that you can kind of plug and play at a lot of spots, but at quarterback, you kind of want to have your guy that is tailored for your system to make things work. Because I mean, as well as anybody, quarterback can make or break an offense or a team here.
Yeah, first thing you got to do is make your own evaluation, right? So you go in now. This may be a guy that they have evaluated at previous places. I'm sure. The quarterback's coach, Gordon, he may have evaluated him at Iowa State or seen something from him there when he was there, because this is a guy that could be kind of in that range, I would imagine. So you may have some evaluations on staff of him, but if not, I think probably one of the first things you want to do when you get on campus is start evaluating guys that are committed already. I'm sure they did that in the 23 class, and you saw kind of guys leave the class. I know I'm not sure how many of those were mutual decisions, how many of those were the recruits' decisions, just based on comfort. But you want to evaluate those guys you have committed early, the ones that you want to retain. You just got to go pitch. Hey, I know you committed to the previous staff. This is what we're trying to do. We think you'll fit like this. But like you said, if you don't feel like it's a fit, you just got to be honest and say, hey, we don't think you're a fit. We're not. That offer was from the old staff. You might want to start looking other places. I think you just have to be honest. But it seems like that with Tate, they've re-offered, and he seems to be steady right now. We'll see how it goes. But one thing that will be really interesting to watch with this group is that this, in theory, especially before they've played a game, is a really fun offense to play in. So you'd imagine, if you're Tate and you're like, oh man, I'm committed here. I really like what Trickett was doing. You're probably a little worried. And then they hire Tennessee's offensive coordinator. You might be thinking, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'll play in that. I already like the school. I like that system. I'll be able to throw the ball all over the place. Great. So, this is one of those things where they seem to be right now. See, everything seems to be going forward as previously planned. But yeah, those are the ones that I wonder when you think about that graph we just looked at. Those are the kind of ones that, how often do those stick where the coaching change has been made? I would imagine it's quite a bit less. And I think you're seeing that with another prospect USF's after, Drew Perez, out in South Lake Carroll, was a Colorado commit. Coach Prime, I'm sorry, came in and basically said, hey, no, we're not honoring these. So you go find something else. So you're seeing that. But I think as long as you're honest with the kid, there's no harm, no foul. You may run afoul of some high school coaches if you wait too long, but with a 2024 kid, I think that's just part of the game, and you just got to let them know. But it seems like they're both on board with each other, so we'll see how it ends up.
Yeah, and I'm curious how the staff will kind of go about making sure they don't want to burn a bridge at that high school, right? You kind of mentioned like the high school coaches, they can get extra in their feelings about how having a guy get kind of left out in the breeze. And I think you'll see that. I think it happens toward the end of the national signing period. A lot of coaches, a lot of players get processed out maybe right before signing day, and you're like, what are we doing here? I want to kind of go toward, we're, I guess, less than a week away at this point from National Signing Day. They had some pretty top-notch visitors over the past weekend. It seems like there may be some movement as we head toward February 1st. A couple guys may be committing, may not. What have you seen? What I know Stieg and Sean have done a great job in the Discord. What's kind of been that process as we kind of get toward National Signing Day here?
Yeah, so we'll talk. We can talk about the three guys that we were pretty sure they had on campus. We've seen these are names that we had over the weekend. I know Sean and Steve kind of knew a couple. They were able to get one of the other ones, and now pictures have come out, so you've kind of seen those guys on campus. Two receivers, you got Jaquan Smith from California, Aquan Dunbar from Kansas, actually. Dunbar is a 6'5", 220-pound receiver is what he was listed at. He may be a replacement for the JUCO receiver Montgomery that released the top 5 that USF was not in. So it looks like they probably want one more big-bodied receiver to kind of fit. And Jaquan Smith is not that, but he is exceptionally explosive. So if you throw on his tape, he looks like he's moving at a different speed than everybody else, and he is. He's a 10.5 100-meter guy. To put that in perspective, Jimmy Horn was a 10.6 100-meter guy. So faster than Jimmy Horn on the track. Has got some big-time offers. I think he put out a top 3 or kind of who he was going to be deciding for signing day, and I believe it was Washington, Utah, and USF. He may be a silent commitment. I'm not positive, but he was visited on the weekend, and there was a come to the Bay bat signal put out by Golish. He would be a big get. Other possibility there is DeCirio Riles, who's kind of a big athlete from Jacksonville. I know he was looked at earlier in the cycle by Florida at linebacker. I think Stieg said he thought he might be an edge. I think ECU is recruiting him as a tight end, and he had a visit to ECU before USF and really liked his visit, but came to USF last weekend. I'm not sure if he's still going. He had a scheduled visit to Indiana, so that's kind of one to watch because last OVs really get it's a big help in getting that signing. So if he makes that trip to Indiana, that's going to be tough to overcome. But there was some thought that maybe that one doesn't happen. So if that happens, I think you're in a dogfight. If not, you feel pretty good if you're USF. We'll try to get Stieg and Sean on maybe next week, the day before, and try to get Riles is a guy that's not signing on signing day. So I think he's signing a week later, maybe. Smith, I believe, is signing on signing day. And then you also made the top 5 for Drew Perez, a big tackle from South Lake Carroll in Texas. He was the one we mentioned earlier that was committed to Colorado. When Coach Prime came in, that thing got nixed. And so he's released the top 5. USF was in it. I know they've been out to see him. And if you were in the Discord, you saw us trying to figure out where in the world is Alex Golish. Is he at a California in and out, or is he at a Texas in and out? Because that would kind of determine who he was visiting. Was he visiting Jaquan Smith after his visit, or was he going out to see Drew Perez in Texas? Shockingly, a lot more in and outs near Drew Perez than there were near Jaquan Smith in San Bernardino, California. So I thought that was interesting. But a pretty good weekend, I think, in terms of quality. If you can pull 2 of those 3 guys, you'd feel pretty happy. 1 to 3, I think, is still good. We'll see where they go. But we can try to get next week, maybe get Stieg and Sean on as we get closer to see. Mm-hmm. They can probably put a pretty good percentage on where they think guys are going to end up. I think right now, Riles and Smith are the 2 guys you would think USF may have the best chance with of that group. But again, are they going to get Riles' last visit? I think that's pretty important in this one. But definitely had some quality guys on campus this past weekend.
I think so. And I think you mentioned the other options for Jaquan Smith. I mean, those are no slouches, right? Like Washington's very, very good. I think Michael Penix is coming back this year. I think he's got one more somehow. I think he's on his eighth year somehow. And then Utah was the Pac-12 champions. So no slouch either. So I think it's really good sign that, USF is starting to compete with some of these guys. I think what Golish has done and that staff has done in basically I guess going on 2 months at this point to salvage and get some interesting pieces for this 2023 class and then kind of set up for the future and the trajectory of where they want recruiting to go while they're here is good. But again, all the offseason stuff doesn't really matter. Just win a freaking game. And I think he knows that. I'll say that the former coach also knew that. It just never happened, to put it nicely.
What was that?
So I will say, let's coach on this. Is going to be a pretty good segue. All right, bear with me. So on Saturday, Coach Goles met with season ticket members at the Yuengling Center and let them know that the spring game will be April 14th at Corbett, mostly because Taylor Swift has 3 nights of concerts at Ray J. So Ray J is out of the question. So there you go.
She don't want to do halftime.
I mean,
you want to talk about? Okay, I understand if you don't stream it. If you get Taylor Swift performing halftime, that's fan appreciation right there.
Is it the 14th? Is the 14th a Friday? Is it? I don't know. From what I understood, it was. Oh, then 15th. Sorry. Wait, maybe it's the 14th.
Oh, tax day.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. I see. This is. No, I'm seeing April 14th. So here we go.
Friday out of the ballpark.
Yeah, it's a Friday. That's so. That's
Friday
interesting.
night would be interesting.
Yeah. I hope they stream it because there's a halfway decent chance I will be at Ray J for the Taylor Swift concert. So good luck to you on that one. Hopefully they stream it so I can watch it back. But that's unfortunate for sure. Ugh. Yeah, didn't think that through. Oh man, if it's at noon on a Friday, man, I would love that. That'd be the funny. Oh man, that'd be so funny.
That'd be great. At noon on Friday. That'd be excellent. Take the day off.
Well, let's not get carried away.
I mean, at least if they stream it, you can at least kill your afternoon at work, you know.
Yeah, I mean, PTO days are precious, Seth. I'm not wasting a PTO day for a spring game.
Oh, hey, man. I will.
I mean, if you're hard up, I guess if you got the PTO, then screw it, I guess. But
they don't roll over.
They don't. The transition is later on Saturday. USF men's basketball beat the absolute living shit out of Central Florida men's basketball. That Reedy Creek country fucking terrible ass basketball team got absolutely decimated by Tyler Harris dropping a career high 33 points. He had 7 rebounds, which tied a career high, or 7 assists that tied a career high, 6 assists that tied a career high. Just absolutely decimated them. The Bulls shot lights out in the first half behind the arc and really kind of gave Central Florida fits. And then Central Florida realized that they're actually a trash-ass school and just stopped playing basketball. You saw halfway through the second half when Central Florida knew that, oh, this shit's over. There's no chance. That was just a phenomenal environment to be sitting in. The tongue twisters. SoFlo Rodeo. That's one thing that I think athletics has done right. They, I don't even care that they had to outsource it, get people in the freaking building, and it was loud. The second deck was full. That was an experience. That was a fun night, fun afternoon, I guess. So the game was at noon for a lot of fans. And I kind of mentioned in the Discord I think it was on Saturday when I was parking, the normal parking lot I go to for media parking was full. I had to go to a different parking lot, which was interesting and hadn't happened in quite some time. I think the last time I had to park that far away was my graduation. So that was 8 years ago. So that was really, really fun.
Humble brag.
Yeah, I graduated. You're welcome. But here's the thing: like we, and by we I mean me and Steek have absolutely crapped on this team for good reason for large swaths of the year. Right? They start 0-5. They were absolutely terrible to start the season, losing to just god awful teams, and then maybe the last month or so, they played pretty decently. They've thrown up on themselves a couple of times, blew a 10-point lead, had Houston on the ropes, blew that. Like there's been times where they just absolutely vomited all over themselves. And yet they beat the crap out of ECU, is terrible. And then they get absolutely smacked by Cincinnati on Wednesday. And you're thinking, All right, you got beat by 15 plus versus Cincinnati at home, and now 2 days later you've got to go face your rival who has pretty much pwned you for the last 7 years outside of that one miracle last season where Javon Green got hot and you beat them by 25. It just has not been good for men's basketball. And mind you, this was the third game in 6 days for USF. So they were kind of running on fumes. And Tyler Harris said it post game probably best. He said BG told them good's not going to be good enough. You need to be great today. Otherwise, they're not going to have a shot. And he took that to heart. And boy, when I tell you that the money spent on him and Keyshawn Bryant were worth it, boy, let me tell you, they are phenomenal. There was one dunk early in the first half that Keyshawn, he nearly tomahawked it in. He got fouled and they went 1 or 2 from the line. But if he had gotten that one down, I think the roof would have collapsed. Like, it was remarkable.
Yeah, it's funny how much of an impact NIL can have in basketball, right? Just because of the smaller roster size. You get a couple guys, you can really turn it. My question for you is, right, there seems to be a lot more positivity surrounding the basketball team. Seems to be a lot more good surrounding the men's basketball team. Is it enough, right? I think Stieg may have publicly fired Brian Gregory on one of these shows. Just like he did with the tennis coach last year, and then they got hot and went on a run. 2 questions: does Stieg have like reverse jinx powers? And then second question: is the reverse jinx that's been happening in men's basketball enough to keep Brian Gregory in a job for another year, or keep him in the USF job for another year?
So, I mean, it's well documented my reverse jinx proudness. I got Coco Montes to the major leagues. I got David Villar to the major leagues. I am 100%. Like, I will take full credit. They're talented. It was me pushing them over the edge that got them to the MLB to where they are today. Steek's power of firing a coach and them actually turning out to like not be as terrible is pretty good. I wish he would have fired Jeff Scott like 14 times last year. Maybe we would have seen a difference.
True.
So
he was hesitant.
He was very hesitant. So maybe he even knows that sometimes great power, great responsibility sort of thing. So he has to pick and choose his spots. Does he last the year? Does he make it to next season?
Or I guess what does he have to? How long does this positivity have to continue? All the way through the end of the year? What do you think they got to get to record wise for him to keep going?
You got to be near 500 in the conference, and you've got to win a game in the tournament. You got to win a game in the conference tournament. You can't go 1-and-out in the tournament this year, especially with there aren't very many great teams. You saw Temple beat Houston over the weekend, and USF plays at Temple tomorrow on Wednesday. I think it's on ESPN Plus tomorrow. So you can't just be terrible. You can't be terrible and crap the bed all the time. You've got to win some of the closer games. Like, these were their last 2 wins, ECU and UCF. They were blowout wins. I want to do it when the game's tight. Don't screw it up. And that's been Brian Gregory's issue, I think, over the last few years, as he's kind of gacked away some of these close games, and it eventually it will cost him a job if it continues to happen in the same ways. So we'll see. You get Temple on the road. They're a 6-point underdog, and then on Sunday you're at SMU. Temple's 12-9, and then SMU's 7-13. Like, the conference is not that great this year. You've got Houston, Memphis is halfway decent. Cincinnati's pretty good, but other than that, like, Tulsa's not good. ECU's not good. SMU, Wichita is a little up and down. Central Florida's clearly not good. Tulane's a little frisky, but you're 2-5 in the conference. if you can hover around 500, I think you've got a decent chance to at least keep your job, because BG's recruiting the crap out of this place. Like, Sam Hines is a good player. Keyshawn Bryant, Tyler Harris is a good player, and Brian Conwell is a great freshman to have around. Rush Chua turning into a walking 12 points, 8 rebounds a night kind of guy is something I didn't expect. That's been the most impressive part, is the way he's improved. I was looking at it today. Russ is shooting 60% from the field, and that's about 14% higher than he was last year. And he's just been more effective. So you've got to see that. It's the offense is so much better than it has been under Brian Gregory almost ever. He kind of talked about it. I think it was Will Turner asked him about the comparisons of maybe some of the better offenses that he's had while at USF, and he kind of mentioned the CBI tournament team. He's like, yeah, that was a good offensive team, but it was mostly sparked by the defense. I think this year's version of USF basketball offensively is a lot more fluid. They have better shooters. It was more transition points with that previous team.
I think I read somewhere that they're one of the best teams in terms of like points per game. And now it's not the perfect measure, but in terms of improvement in that area on offense. So that seems to track, right? And is that, how much does that help even when losing, that it seems to be a little more easy on the eyes this year than it has in past years?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think if you had asked us after the first 5 games when they were averaging like under like 60 points a game, you're like, no, this is the same old thing.
Yeah.
But you've seen the progression. Like Tyler Harris he's gone for 30 twice in the last 4 games. Like, the dude can put up points. Rush Chua has a 20-point game. Like, these guys, I think Sorrell Smith has a 25-point game. Selton Miguel. Like, there's talent here. It's you got to figure out the close games, and that's when they clam up, when teams start pressing, and then you get sped up on offense, and now you're not doing the right thing, you're not making the right pass. I think on Saturday, if you guys watched the game, they were doubling Russ in the post almost immediately, and he was able to make the right pass and get the ball back around, swing it around, find an open shot. When you're pressing and you get sped up, you're not making the right pass, the right extra play. There was a moment in the second half on Saturday. It was Corey Walker Jr. was basically in the right corner, basically in front of USF's bench, and he makes a 3, and it's the one that bounces off the rim and then goes in. And it's like, okay, you got some ball luck this time. For the first time in probably like 10 years, USF got some a good bounce at the Yingling Center. Brian Gregory said post game, he's like, yeah, I turned around because I thought he missed it, and then everybody started cheering. He's like, oh, okay, great. He's like started prepping for defenses that are making the transition. But that play is set up because they double Russ, he gets it out, they make a pass, and then they make the extra pass to Corey in the corner, and you get an open look, and he hits it. It's those things. If you can continue to do that consistently, this team is so much better. It's when they get sped up, when Tyler Harris gets into foul trouble, when he's not on the floor, and you have the younger guys kind of running the offense, what do? And that was the perk of having LaQuincy Redoux and David Collins in the backcourt for so long, is they never really got sped up. They made the right decisions even when they were getting pressed, and you haven't really found that solid piece. I think Tyler Harris is that piece, but if he's off the floor for, I think he was off the floor for like 4 minutes in the first half. He played like 37 minutes on Saturday. So that 3-minute stretch, it's like, okay, don't lose the game here. Just maintain. And they were able to do that in the first half. If you can consistently do that, find that second guy in the backcourt, it's going to make the offense a lot better. Defensively, they need to improve. They get stretched out a little bit, and it makes it easy for rim runs, back cuts, things like that. They did a really good job on Saturday cutting down on that sort of thing. But the offense is fun this year. I'll be the first to admit it's a really fun offense. I know this is a really long-winded answer for your question, but I love fun offense. I love fun basketball, and this is the offense. At least is fun basketball most of the time.
I think that's. I mean, I think for perception, it's important as somebody who's a lot more casual with basketball than I am with football. If I'm going to watch a team lose, I'd much rather watch an up-tempo, fast-paced game where we've got some pretty good offense and maybe we lose in a shootout, rather than watch a slog, four corners,
Right.
Virginia Dean Smith, old school basketball. Like I'd much rather watch up and down, making a bunch of shots. That's a lot more, and even in a loss, that's a lot more fun than watching a slog, which it seemed like you were getting the worst of both worlds of the past couple of years, where you're getting a team that's not very good and they also were not very fun to watch. So that's like
the double whammy.
How to kill your fan base in two ways. It's those lose a lot and then also don't be fun to watch. So
yeah, and I think so. They're shooting 33% from three this season, which doesn't sound great, but when you shot 25% last year, it's like you found it you're now amazing at it, and all you do is hit three. So you're basically the Splash Brothers at this point when you're doing it that well. But man, I'll say this:
they bring on Chip England in the offseason.
I mean, good Lord, it was Tyler Harris. I can't undersell how important he is, and I'm so sad we only get him for 1 year. And I know AJD NPO asked Tyler Harris is the best USF men's basketball player since ... Alexis Yedna was pretty good. Dominique Jones was really good. For all the crap he got for not being able to hit a free throw and maybe a three-pointer, I really liked seeing David Collins play. But truly, it's probably since Dominique. Like, this dude he will put a man on skates and hit a three in his eye. And yet USF hasn't had that guy. It's been a long time. I remember that NIT team with Dominique. That was a fun year. They had a lot more talent around Dom than actually, but I think it's Dom.
I mean, he's hitting shots from the horns out there.
Yeah, he is not afraid to pull up from literally anywhere on the floor. And there were a couple heat check threes on Saturday that actually went in, and then there was one who was like, "Oh, I'm feeling it. I'm just gonna chuck this," and he hit like the side of the rim. I'm like, that was just a heat check. I get it, because I think he hit him and someone went like back to back on 3-pointers, and he was like, you know what, screw it, I'm chucking this no matter where I am. And I love the confidence in the kid. I think the season record for threes made in a season is 88, and he's at 59 with a good chunk of the season left. I think there's a good chance he may shatter that record. So I mean, bully for him. But yeah. When I tell you USF men's basketball has been terrible at 3-point shooting for their entire history of their
That's all
program,
I get it now.
Yeah, it's like you can name the best 3-point shooters. I'm sure everybody would have the same ones. It's Reggie Cohn, and the guy. I think it's Dobris who actually has the record. Do we want to consider Sean Noriega for this title? I'll leave that to the chat to decide if we want to add him to potent 3-point shooters. Torlin Fitzpatrick was really good that 1 year. But yeah, USF's mostly for the history of their program has been defense and dunkers. That I would say like that's basically it. So you're not going to see like
Well,
88 is really, really low. And like a
that's definitely
30,
what works
30
in modern
games.
basketball.
It's taken them a few years to catch up to like 2010, but we're here, baby. 13 years late.
Wow.
Oh boy. Let's see. To be fair, Noriega had some things going on when he played for Stan Heath. So there's that. Yes, because if they could shoot and do something else, they'd play somewhere else. That's exactly right. Those typical 3-and-D guys do not come to USF. If you get an athletic guy and maybe he can hit a jumper every once in a while.
Yeah, Derek Sharp, 88.
Derek Sharp. Yep.
88 for 224. 88 for 224.
How sad is that? How depressing is that? And that's a 30-year-old record?
91, 92.
That's a 30-year-old record. And I doubt it's even come close to being touched in the last 30 years. Maybe Reggie Cohen, maybe, but yikes.
Tell me about Melvin Buckley.
Oh, the olds are gonna have to tell you about him. I couldn't tell you.
This guy put up 228.
I do know that
made 79.
Former Chamberlain High School boys basketball coach, Doug Applin, put up 30 on Central Florida in a game when there was no 3-point line.
There you go. That's big time.
That's big time. But let's see.
From a team that hasn't been fun to watch typically to a team that's been very fun to watch over the last few years.
Yes, women's basketball. Also, if you missed the intro to the men's basketball section, beat the absolute dog shit out of Central Florida on Sunday, and it was so enjoyable. I loved every second of it. I wish I could drink it and then throw it up and then drink it again. It was just an absolute decimation by Jose Fernandez and his team. I don't even know where to start with women's basketball. They are so much fun to watch. This is the most fun team I've seen play in quite a while. Lord willing, they don't hit that swoon that happened last year for women's basketball. For some reason, everybody forgot how to shoot. But Elena, Sammy, Dulcie, all of them, the entire crew. I mean, Carla Brito, I think, went for like 13 or 14 against Central Florida on Sunday. Like, as a true freshman, like, she's going to be incredible. Samu Puis is just a dead eye from three, and I think she may have the prettiest form on a 3-point shooter that I've seen, like men's or women's, in quite a while. That's played at USF. Like, they are. It's so much fun. The chase for 30 is definitely intact. The chase for 28 is, you've got to do it. This is so much fun. Women not ranked in the AP. I think they're firmly at 28, behind Texas, who USF has also already beaten this year, which makes no sense, but they are ranked 25th in the coaches poll this week. So
listen, let's talk about the AP poll real quick. Think how bad the AP poll is in college football, where people are really on where. No offense to women's basketball, college football is quite a bit bigger, more popular, more accessible to watch. Think about how bad that poll is. The women's basketball poll is gonna be bad. I think there's probably a lot of people voting that don't watch anything.
That is honestly fair. That is a true assessment. And if I had to vote, USF to be top 10. So I get it. There's just some regional biases. There's some powerhouse biases.
Yeah, I think I'm sure there's some power conference bias. Even I'm sure there's some. Oh, you know what? The record's similar. They're in the Big 12. We'll put them ahead. Oh, they played earlier this year. Whatever.
Yeah. And I think that I guess the knock on them is they lost to Ohio State in overtime. the third ranked team in the country. So the interesting thing for me is Middle Tennessee is ranked. They've only lost 2 games, but you look at like who they played, and that I don't understand that. But again, trying to figure out the women's basketball poll is an exercise in futility. Everybody who watches USF knows they are, as Colin puts, one of the best teams in the country. Top 15, absolutely. They can play with anybody on any given night. And I posed this in, I wasn't ready to put this in the Discord, so I put it in Slack on, I think it was on Sunday during the game. So is Dulcie better than Betty? I will let the crowd decide. Who would do or die game? Are you taking Betty or are you taking Dulcie? And I'll let y'all figure it out. But the reason that sparked this is there was back-to-back possessions kind of late in the game-ish where Dulcie got basically they ran like a pick and roll for her. She got positioning and was within like 2 feet of the basket in 1 second. She just turns around, lays it in, and it just kind of ended any threat of Central Florida even mounting a comeback from like 20 to like cut it to 15. They just blew it. They just blew it open. And then she has like a Euro step. She's like, you don't realize it. Like she was walking into the Yingling Center or into MUMA on Saturday. They had a walk around practice after the men's game, and you don't realize like she is lanky and she is long and she uses that to her advantage. She's got this Euro step that may or may not be illegal, but they never really call it because women's basketball refs are just as terrible as the women's voters. Like it, I mean, that could be an entire different podcast and show about how atrocious the refs are in women's college sports, just in period. The quality of them are horrific, but she has a Euro step that is almost unbeatable when she gets it. And I think she's shooting 60% as well. And she's close to, I think it's 75% from the line like that. Add in Elena's like 20, add in Sammy's 20, and you've got 55 points just walking into the gym. So, God, I love this team so much. They're so much fun to watch. I can't wait to see what they can do going forward. But someone mentioned Maria getting healthy, Priscilla getting healthy. That's going to be huge as well. Oh, did I leave the chat?
No.
Oh, what the hell is he talking about? What are you even talking about?
I don't know.
Here's the thing that I think is kind of getting overlooked a little bit. Ariel Wilson's been pretty steady at point guard. There was a big question mark about what they were going to do when with the point guard position, and we always do. But there was a big question mark about what they were going to do at point guard this season, and she's been able to step in and be effective. She's not a great shooter, and she knows that, but she's been able to effectively run the offense and not get in the way too much, which is probably the best way to put it. Let's see. Can you throw Colin's comment up there?
I can.
I'll read it because this podcasting, as you know, is a visual medium. They defended a high level. They have a shooter and Sammy, driver Elena, and post and Dulcie. If they play a team that's huge, that's a problem, but there isn't a normal size team in the country they can't beat. Yeah, I agree. So I think South Carolina would give them trouble. Yeah, the top tier teams will absolutely give them trouble. I think it was Joe Lenardi's. I think it was his. Whoever does the women's basketball bracketology, they've got USF as a 6 seed. They would play Duke in the second round, which Charlie Cream. Yep, there it is. They played Duke in the second round. That's a winnable game. I mean, that's what
What's their seed ceiling, you think?
5. I think 5, but that's got to be the conference is so bad this season, like atrociously bad. And there's only so much movement you can make. You've got to beat everybody like they have. I don't think outside of Houston, which they nearly blew a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter, I don't think they have a conference win by fewer than 10 points outside of one. So if you continue to do that, I think you may be able to bump up to a 5. I think this team's too good to be a 7 or an 8, and I think the people know. And low is 6 if they continue it, but they could get bumped to a 5, and that'd be a lot of fun.
Well, they have to win out, right? I mean, that's best case scenario, win out.
Yeah, absolutely. Best case scenario, you win out.
What do you think is likely? Do you think a 6 is likely, or do you think they'll end up? Because it seems to be every year they're in contention for a higher seed, and it comes out to be a low seed, like Eric said in the chat here. Like it always seems like you have a great year, you're a 9 seed, you're an 8 seed. You get to play the first round,
right,
second round. Good luck.
If they end up a 10 to 13 seed, and honestly, if they end up an 8 seed, something went horribly wrong the back half of the season. So they've got 3 games left. They're at Tulsa Wednesday. They're at Memphis on Saturday, home for ECU on the 31st. And then they round out at SMU, home for Houston, at Central Florida, home for SMU, home for Tulsa. Tulsa is pretty good. I know Tulsa lost to Tulane on Saturday, which kind of put a damper on Wednesday's game, but they're still a pretty good team. But USF's got to take care of business and win every game. That's what they do. And if you win by 15 plus every game, you could probably process up to a 5, but no lower than 6. A 4 is probably out of the realm of possibility. They never get that high.
All right.
But I know we're absolutely stepping on the USF Athletics Roundup, but there was absolutely no way, Seth, that I was going this entire podcast without talking about those 2 games. There's few things that make me as happy in life as, it's like when I went to Disney a couple weeks ago, Brody's first time, Olivia's first time since the pandemic, seeing their face when they saw the castle, like, made me giddy, absolutely ecstatic. Seeing Olivia's face when she rode Space Mountain for the first time, seeing Samantha walk down the aisle at our wedding, seeing that my kids be born. But right up there, and I mean right up there, is when USF beats the absolute dog shit out of that team in Oviedo. And I love it. It made my weekend. I had such a good weekend, and I hope they continue to do it the rest of the year and then never play them again.
They also got I think they gave them a bagel in hockey as well. It was a beat down all weekend.
It was hockey. The club hockey team won 10-0. And then
10-0 and 9-0 or something like that.
Yeah, they lost twice over the weekend to USF. So, super solid week. Plus co-ed cheerleading. Basically, it's been that VH1 best week ever. Their segment Central Florida had just literally the worst week ever. Like, you lost to your rival in like 6 different sports, and it was fantastic. So there you go.
I've got one more pitch for the Discord before we get out of here. So if you're watching on Twitch, if you're watching YouTube, whatever, if you follow us on Twitch, take a screenshot, direct message the Stampede SB and the house account on Twitter with your Twitch follow. We'll send you an invite to the Discord. What can you get in the Discord, you may ask? Let me show you. This just popped up while we were on the pod. We talked about where's Coach Golish? Where was his in and out? Is it a Texas one? Is it a California one? Is he visiting Jaquan Smith? Where is he? So here we go. A nice bit of info, a nice bit of sleuthing here by DW. Check out the location here from Coach Golish's latest tweet. San Bernardino, California. Where's Jaquan Smith from? He's from San Bernardino, California.
Interesting.
So just those are the fun little facts you can get in Discord, and get a lot of info before it goes onto message boards and other sites that you're paying a lot of money every month for. We've got some guys that are getting it pretty quickly, pretty consistently, and first. So good stuff. I think Stieg also said in there that Jaquan Smith followed Eddie Kelly on Instagram or some such thing. So
here we go.
Seems to be good news for Jaquan Smith.
It really does. It really does. My OnlyFans is not up and running yet. It eventually. I mean, you can't hide all of this forever. But we'll see. But that's pretty much it. We talked about the fun things we wanted to talk about. Let's do this again next week. We'll have another show this week, the USF Athletics Roundup, where Vito and Stieg will deep dive into the week that was, and they'll touch on some basketball stuff and tennis and track and field.
I think you had a men's tennis win over the weekend. You had some other good things.
A couple of men's tennis wins over the weekend, so that's really good, really fun. I will mention so women's tennis lost to Florida, but they were able to take a set off of Florida. That is massive because Florida is really, really good at tennis. That's what they do. So no OCS update as of yet. There's stuff in the works for sure. But if you're in the Discord, the Live Oak had a nice little recap for us. Steve has some information as well. It's heading down the right path, and we'll get it sorted. They haven't officially signed the contracts for everything, but we're heading in the right direction. So once again, thank you, Coach Prime.
Yeah, I mean, the delay is probably making those changes architecturally that he recommended. I've heard him say he is a builder, so he recommended obviously some changes to some things, and they had to make sure they got those through the Army Corps of Engineers, get that approval, that kind of thing. So that's probably the delay. But one more pitch for the Discord, guys. Like the Live Oak has a ton of great info. Sean, who I'm sure all of you guys follow on Twitter at alumni_USF for recruiting stuff, has a ton of great info. There's a lot of guys on there with good information. I think we'll have some pretty good information on stadium stuff whenever it's available. So join up. There are a lot of good guys in there, and definitely worth the investment of a Twitch follow right now.
Yep, absolutely. Well, for Seth, I have been Nathan. Thank you for tuning in, watching, joining. Make sure you like, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on Twitch. Follow us on Twitter at Stampede SBN, at Seth Varnadore, at Bulls Nathan SBN. Get your USF fix here. Lots of good stuff going on. I'm excited for the future. We got some fun stuff happening on Thursday for us, Seth, that hopefully will be hopefully that works out well for us in the future for some fun things for you guys. We got things in the works. 2023, baby. It's the year of the Daily Stampede. We'll say shout out to all the SB Nation accounts that got killed this week. I'll say feel terrible for the MLS and the NHL team sites that got killed. Raw Charge, the Lightning site got killed, and I think they're done March 1st. If it wasn't for the Philadelphia Union's SB Nation site, we wouldn't have Morgan as a photographer. So man, this sucks. They had such a good thing and didn't know what to do with it because they don't know who Nick Saban is. So here we are. But be sure to check out some of the other sites. I know people will be doing something. And I feel terrible for those folks, and somehow we still make it through. But don't tell them. I think we're at this point we've got to be a clerical error on their side. But for now, thank you, Seth, for doing this. You're a doll. You're a dreamboat. Have a wonderful night. Be safe. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls.